Okay, time to make a lot of people mad. Hello friends, Steve Dangle here, and this is my 2022 Stanley Cup Playoff bracket. We're gonna go through all of the first round series, the series that come out of it in rounds 2 and 3 and 4, which you might know as the Stanley Cup Final, and we are gonna figure out who is going to win the Stanley Cup according to me. Should you take this seriously? Absolutely! But I should warn you that I have never been right once. Producer Drew on this YouTube channel is a Colorado Avalanche fan. He has gotten mad at me because I have predicted that they would win the Stanley Cup in each of the last 2 years. Will I do it a third straight time? You'll just have to wait and see. And why not start there? The first series we're going to look at is the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Nashville Predators, a series that was decided on the last day of the season. Well, the last day of the season for everyone who's not the Kraken or Jets. Just that one little game left on the last Sunday. It almost feels like a waste of time to go through the Colorado Avalanche's season and what makes the Colorado Avalanche special, which is everything. Cale Makar was on a world-beating, ridiculous pace to begin the season, and he slowed down to like just under 30 goals. He still might win the Norris. Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, and how about all-star Nazem Kadri? Darcy Kemper, he might not have been the right choice, I don't know. Well, he's been getting better as the season has gone. They are far and away the favorite, so who are the catalysts for the Nashville Predators? Well, geez, the Predators have had a super underrated season, and I think they've performed better than a lot of people thought. Matt Duchene, better than people thought. Now he gets to take on the Colorado Avalanche in a playoff series, which is so fun. Ryan Johansson, better season than people thought. Roman Josi, speaking of Norris winners, might just win the thing. And UC Saros in net has been a revelation. I knew he was good. I did not know he was this good. And that is the big problem for the Nashville Predators. They don't have Saros to start round 1 by the looks of it. How long is he out? I'm not going to rule anybody out. It's the playoffs and we've seen more ridiculous things happen, surely. But the game 1 starter for Nashville at the time I'm shooting this is not decided, but it's looking like Big Save Dave Riddick, or Connor Ingram. Just a hunch, I think they maybe start with Big Save Dave. I think he's going to get lit up, and I think they're going to end up going to Ingram, who may give them a fighting shot. Once very highly touted prospect, he just hasn't gotten much of an NHL shot. There's some potential there, and I think in this situation it's better to go with the mystery box. Not to mention there are some big, tough dudes on that Nashville Predators roster. Tanner Jeannot, one of the best kept secrets in the NHL, and a nightmare to play against. Guys like Yakov Trenin, Mark Borowiecki, he's built for the playoffs. I think it could be a lot of fun, but man, I have a hard time seeing anyone other than the Colorado Avalanche winning this thing. I give the Preds 1 game, Avs in 5. For our next series, the Minnesota Wild and the St. Louis Blues. Let's get this out of the way nice and early in the video. No bad teams make the Stanley Cup playoffs. Last year, people pointed to the Montreal Canadiens, and they ended up going 4 rounds deep and 3 wins shy of the Stanley Cup. However, every year there is at least one series where you look at both teams playing each other in round 1 and you just go, oh, that sucks. Both the St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild, to me, are built for a deep run. I would absolutely believe it if either team went on a deep run, and the problem is only one of them can do it. They played each other twice in April, and the problem with that is I don't take much from it. Or at very least, it doesn't give us a clear winner. They were high-scoring affairs. St. Louis won both in overtime, but I would encourage people to take that with a grain of salt when you're trying to predict who's going to win in the playoffs. Because let's say your team is taking on a team that they beat 4 out of 4 times in overtime. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, 3-on-3 overtime does not exist. So in the extraordinarily unlikely circumstance that your 2 teams take coincidental minors twice within 2 minutes, there's not going to be a lot of 3-on-3 ice. St. Louis Blues, full of some of the most underrated players in the league. Barbashev, big breakout season for him. Jordan Kyrou, he was at the All-Star game, so he's maybe not that underrated. Robert Thomas is in the Hat Picks videos that I do here on the Sportsnet YouTube channel all the time. One of the premier playmakers in the NHL and a big body. Vladimir Tarasenko having a big season for the Blues. Jordan Binnington falling off. Guess what? They got Ville Husso in net. But then you got the Minnesota Wild, who were pretty good in the first place and then were one of the biggest adders at the trade deadline. Getting Jacob Middleton on the back end and adding Marc-Andre Fleury in net, which is just How do you even predict? How many teams go out and get a starting goaltender at the trade deadline? I've had people ask, well, who do you start, Cam Talbot or Marc-Andre Fleury? I think if you go out and get Marc-Andre Fleury, it's because he's your starter, and his record in Minnesota is, he basically has almost not lost entirely. And if he falters, well, yeah, you can go to Talbot. Meanwhile, in St. Louis, if Villiuso falters, you go to Jordan Binnington, who has won a Stanley Cup and has not played very well. It's very interesting. And on Minnesota's side, I am excited because they have the best player in this series in Kirill Kaprizov. Just a monster season for the Wild. Can he bring it in the playoffs? I have Minnesota winning this one in 7 games. I just think Marc-Andre Fleury is such a catalyst for this one. Like, there's so little to take from looking at their record down the stretch. They're both so good. I had to pick one team. I'm going with Minnesota. So if the St. Louis Blues beat them and then they go on a big run, take it easy on me because I'd believe it, man. Ultimately, I think this series could come down to 1 game and 1 goal. The third series in the West that we'll look at, the Calgary Flames taking on the Dallas Stars. A series that happened not that long ago. You might remember the bubble. And the Dallas Stars won. Well, how the turntables! 2 teams that had extraordinarily forgettable 2020-2021 seasons. Dallas Stars, a lot of injuries, a lot of turmoil with where their team was playing. Calgary Flames, a lot of not having fun at all and just kind of not looking like a good hockey team. This season, the Dallas Stars obviously bounced back in a pretty nice way. The Calgary Flames are a revelation and arguably the most built for the Stanley Cup Playoffs team in the entire league. Daryl Sutter, weight. Daryl Sutter, heaviness. Daryl Sutter, exhaustion. Calgary Flames come at you in waves and have one of the best 5-on-5 lines, if not the best 5-on-5 line in the entire league, with Elias Lindholm, Johnny Gaudreau, and Matthew Tkachuk. All 3 of those guys are an awful time to play against in so many different ways. In net, it's a battle of the Jakes. Jake Ottinger, who is really good. I really believe in that guy. I think he's going to be a great goalie in the NHL for a long time. But Jake Markstrom is going to get nominated for the Vezina. He might just win the thing. And if the Flames go on a deep run, he could win the Conn Smythe. Bless the Dallas Stars. You can't rule them out of anything. The pesky Stars is a thing. I think the Flames are too good, though. I think they're going to win in 5. And the last series in the West is a fascinating one. The Edmonton Oilers in the 2 seed in the Pacific taking on the 3 seed LA Kings. A few weeks ago, I would have given this to the Kings, but my opinion has since changed, and I'll explain why. 2 very significant things have happened. Number 1, Drew Doughty has gone down with an injury. It doesn't look like he's going to play in this series. That is an enormous problem for the LA Kings, who have had some great performances on the back end from young guys. Sean Durzi, what a breakout player for the Kings. But it's so difficult to make up for the fact that you're missing your best defender. And number 2, I don't think anyone is talking nearly enough about the fact that the Edmonton Oilers over the past few weeks have been fantastic. One of the best records in the NHL over the last month of the season, and okay, they got creamed by Minnesota in 1 game. So what? The Panthers got run over, the Leafs got run over. We're not writing them off. Well, maybe the Leafs. We'll get to them in a bit. I don't think anything in this series is given. The Kings have Cal Peterson in net. They also have Jonathan Quick, who is the strangest goalie. And speaking of strange goalies, Mike Smith went from borderline unusable to one of the best goalies down the stretch. Jay Woodcroft behind the bench has been a huge help for the Edmonton Oilers. And oh yeah, they have you ever heard of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? No? They're new, so I don't blame you. If the Kings are to win this series, it's their strength up the middle. And you might be looking at the Oilers and going, their strength up the middle is pretty good. Yes, but the Kings have Anze Kopitar, who is frequently in the Selke conversation, and Philip Deneau, who made a big name for himself in last year's playoffs, shutting down everybody. I think this one's going to be tight, and this one's going to be nasty. The Edmonton Oilers wondering how healthy Darnell Nurse is. That's a big one, too. I think the Oilers ultimately win this one in 6. Now we go to the East. The Florida Panthers taking on the Washington Capitals. I think this one seems like a foregone conclusion, right? Florida Panthers, one of the hottest teams in the final month of the season. They had a 13-game win streak. Just an absolute breakout phenomenon this season. The Washington Capitals, on the other hand, have been in a playoff spot for quite some time because all the playoff spots in the East were locked up basically around Christmas, but they were always sort of at the bottom of that picture. And in recent playoff series, since they won the Cup in 2018, they haven't had any luck getting through to the second round. As much as the Washington Capitals have a bit of an unsure situation net with Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov, you don't know exactly who's going to show up and when. I think the Panthers kind of have a version of that with Sergei Bobrovsky, who has had a much better season this year than last, and Spencer Knight. Few question marks. Alexander Ovechkin took a nasty fall into the boards about a week ago, hurt his shoulder. Looks like he'll be okay. Good luck keeping him out of this series. And Aaron Ekblad, just the worst luck in the world. He missed last year's first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It looks like he could be back for this series, if not game one, then certainly partway through. Tom Wilson is such an X factor for the Washington Capitals. The Florida Panthers are tough in their own regard. Sam Bennett is pretty tough. Radko Gudas, Mackenzie Weegar, they got guys, but I think the Capitals are going to give them a frustrating time. All that to say, I don't think the Caps are going to be pushovers, but I do think the Panthers are going to win in 6. That's how good they are, by the way. I didn't even have to mention Huberdeau or Barkov in that little summary because I didn't have to. You knew. They're extremely good. So, Tampa Bay Lightning, reigning back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have not won a playoff series since 2004. Florida Panthers, by the way, have not won a playoff series since 1996, but nobody cares. Listen, we all know what it is. Two teams who can score goals, two teams who get goaltending, Tampa Bay much more consistently with Andrei Vasilevskiy, but Jack Campbell, who was an all-star for his early season performance, has gotten better since returning from injury. But Tampa, always underrated on the back end. Their left side is second to none in the NHL. Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev. I think the Leafs back end, though, their top 6 is at very least underrated, and I would argue the best it's been possibly in my lifetime. Now, is that a low bar? Yes. They have to figure out a Tampa Bay Lightning offense that is ridiculously versatile, and the game plan, I think, is going to be pretty simple. Put one or two guys in front of the Leafs net, get some perimeter shots from lethal shooters who probably won't even need a rebound, but if they do, men will be there to bang it in. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, no pushover in that regard. They have Mitch Marner, who finished just shy of 100 points. Steven Stamkos, by the way, over 100 points. And Austin Matthews, the first 60-goal man in the NHL since Steven Stamkos. My favorite stat when it comes to the series is Andrei Vasilevskiy is currently having the second worst season of his career and the worst save percentage season since the 2015-16 season. He is still a .916. LOL. A big complaint from Leafs head coach Sheldon Keefe was that the Leafs weren't scoring enough playoff-style goals. That is not the case this year. They're banging in a lot. Also, the Leafs have gotten some ridiculous performances from guys who were on the team last year or on the periphery, barely making the roster at sometimes this season, who have improved big time. Pierre Engvall, legitimate offensive threat now, and he can be trusted as a defensive forward on the shutdown line. Ilya Mikheyev, who is one of the fastest players in the league and trustworthy in all situations. Timothy Liljegren, the rookie on the back end, has really emerged next to Mark Giordano. But you look back at the playoffs over the years, there's always one defenseman who people point to as shutting the Leafs down. Zdeno Chara, Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, that little duo in the bubble series, and last year, Shea Weber and Ben Sherratt. Probably not since the 2013 version of Zdeno Chara have the Leafs taken on a defenseman of the quality of Victor Hedman in a playoff series. 85 points and 20 goals this season. He'd win the Norris Trophy 10 out of 10 seasons if it weren't this one. This one's so weird. Despite all of that, I think the hunger is there. They're due. They're due. They're both due. Tampa is due to come off the throne. The Leafs are due to finally bust through. Call it a funny feeling. Call it a gut instinct. You can call me a homer all you want. It doesn't hurt my feelings because I've bet against the Leafs plenty of times in these videos. You can go back and watch. I have the Leafs winning in 7 because it's funny. And because I actually feel like that's going to happen. Oh, Dangle! I look forward to seeing your perfect bracket too, bud. Next in the East, this is a weird one. The Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Boston Bruins. Now, while the Leafs have the reputation of never being able to get out of the first round, and the Capitals since 2018 have had that reputation a little bit, I think there's two teams out there who are skirting this a little bit, not being able to get out of the second round. Colorado Avalanche being one of them. That was being whispered about plenty last season. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, it just feels like we're still waiting for them to break through, as good as they are. But man, do I give the Bruins the edge in net. Linus Ullmark has been great for them, and Jeremy Swayman is there to perform fantastically should Ullmark go down. Carolina, they got Frederik Andersen, who has been in the Vezina conversation all season, and he got hurt. Like, he just got hurt. It doesn't look like he's going to be in the first round. And even if he is, let's not forget that the Bruins beat Frederik Andersen in 2018 and 19. In the same way that I have trouble giving the Carolina Hurricanes the benefit of the doubt for as good as they are. They're a great hockey team. I have such a hard time writing off the Boston Bruins. Names have come and gone, but Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak. Surely, at some point, the sun has to set on that iteration of the Boston Bruins. And I'm here to tell you, that ain't happening yet. Bruins in 7. And another super tight one in the Eastern Conference. This conference is wild. We have the New York Rangers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, if my Twitter mentions are any indication, Pittsburgh Penguins fans are not thrilled about this series, because the Penguins have been underrated basically all season long. If they had just gotten some saves out of Tristan Jarry, they probably beat the Islanders last year. This year, Jarry has been great, and the Penguins have found new heights. And the Rangers have Igor Shesterkin, who seems like the runaway winner of the Vezina Trophy. Or, I mean, that trophy is voted by the GMs, and they just sort of look at the win column. At very least, Shesterkin has far and away the best save percentage. The Rangers are a meatier team than last year because Tom Wilson ruined that organization from ownership down, basically. He cost them so much money. But let me ask you this. Do you want to be playing Chris Kreider in the playoffs in a breakout year? That dude had over 40 goals! Crosby, Gino, Letang, you cannot write these guys off, just like the Bruins before I was talking about. But the Rangers have had the Penguins' number this season. I have the Rangers in 7. But let's not waste time. Let's go to the second round. The Colorado Avalanche taking on the Minnesota Wild. I don't think, whether it's St. Louis or Minnesota who comes out of that series, I don't think that series is going to tickle. And I think they're going to be exhausted and going up against the ridiculous speed and finesse and power of the Colorado Avalanche. They're going to fall. I have the Avalanche winning that one. The other series in the West, everyone's dream, the Battle of Alberta. Kings versus Flames in a rematch of a few years ago, and Daryl Sutter and all that. That'd be fun too, but it's got nothing on the Battle of Alberta. When the Oilers get ahead of steam, it's difficult to bet against them. A confident Draisaitl, a confident McDavid, and everyone around them who Jay Woodcroft just seems to have elevated to new heights. But to me, the Flames have just been too well-oiled of a machine. They're going to be all over the Oilers. They're going to batter and bruise them. They're going to keep them to the outside and make their lives miserable. I have the Flames winning that Battle of Alberta. In the East, the Florida Panthers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I know a lot of you are laughing at me because, listen, at some point, the Lightning are going to lose and the Leafs are going to win. I have a gut feeling. I'm not being biased. I have a gut feeling. When it comes to my gut feeling with the Leafs, it's usually nausea. So this is a step up. The Panthers come at you in waves and waves and ridiculous waves. I think their defense is going to be able to batter and bruise teams. But they're an extraordinarily chaotic team who got 13 overtime wins. But what did I say earlier? Those 3-on-3 overtime wins are not going to be there in the playoffs. There is no 3-on-3 in the playoffs. It's not impossible. It's just extraordinarily unlikely. To me, the Panthers thrive in chaos. But to me, that's not what the playoffs are. And that is the Leafs' reputation, that they are just high-flying, high-octane chaos. I don't think you're watching them closely enough, because the Leafs play their best hockey when they're calm, when they're controlled, when they slow things down a little bit, when they're methodical with their plays. And again, call it whatever you want. I've never predicted this before. I have the Leafs going to the third round. They're going to beat Florida. Our last one in the East and the last one in the second round, this was extremely difficult to call. We have the Boston Bruins taking on the New York Rangers. The Boston Bruins are great when you give them an assignment. And in this one, there is an obvious assignment. Get in Shesterkin's kitchen. The Bruins love a side project, and the Rangers are going to do everything to prevent the Bruins from getting into Shesterkin's kitchen. Bruins are going to drag that young team into the muck. And I think that's going to give them a huge advantage because all of a sudden you're playing to the Bruins. Everything that you do is a response to them. Before you roll your eyes, remember who you're talking to. I've seen them do it. I think the Rangers are fantastic, but I don't know if they're ready for this necessarily. I think it's going to be a tight series. I got Boston winning. Western Conference Final, the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Calgary Flames. This is an unbelievable series. This is also the series that, don't listen to what he tells you, Daryl Sutter absolutely 100% wants at every given opportunity. Sometimes when he's not even prompted, Daryl Sutter talks about the Colorado Avalanche being the cream of the crop in the Western Conference, the cream of the crop in the entire NHL. At times I've thought that he's planted these seeds in the media to try to put pressure on the Avs, and maybe that's what it's doing. But I think what he's actually doing is issuing a challenge to his team. When it comes to the Final Four, there's no criticism to levy, really. It's not taking a shot at any team that I think is gonna duck out in the playoffs. I think the worst thing in the universe is to play a Daryl Sutter team, especially this Flames team, the way they've been playing, when you're already tired. And when you're over a month into the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're gonna be tired. I think the Flames are gonna beat the Avalanche and go to the Stanley Cup final. Lastly, the Eastern Conference final. Sometimes I think we're destined to do this forever. The Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Boston Bruins. At this point, we're going full story mode. Listen, any Leaf fan watching this right now, you were thinking about Boston in that final game. The way I pitch this to everybody is, listen, any path where the Leafs make the Stanley Cup final, if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, any path where the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup is going to be fine with every Leafs fan. It's going to be fantastic. But the best version of it, they beat Boston on the way. The Leafs slayed one dragon by getting through to the second round, and I think they slay another here. The Leafs go on to the Stanley Cup final, where we will have an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final between the Calgary Flames and the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is going to be a tough one for me because I think the hardest that I've cheered for a team that's not the Leafs is the 2004 Calgary Flames. I loved Jarome Iginla growing up. I named my dog Iggy because he's a golden doodle, and I went to the game where Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal assisted by Jarome Iginla. If you're looking there in the background, that ticket stub that's my ticket stub to the golden goal game, the gold medal game in 2010. And taking on the Calgary Flames will be the Leafs, the team that, full disclosure, stop me if you've heard this before, I've cheered for since I was a boy. Listen to me. If you watched the video that I made after the Leafs lost Game 7 to Montreal last year, if you watch a Leafs game with Steve Dangle last year during the playoffs when the Leafs coughed it up and lost in Game 5, when they coughed it up and lost in Game 6, when they lost in that horrible Game 7, you know that I was crushed down to the foundation of who I am, down to the bone marrow. And against my better judgment, against every instinct screaming at me to not believe, this Leafs team is infiltrated in a way that I never expected. Listen, I was there for it was 4-1 against the Boston Bruins. I was there for when the Leafs lost to a dude who happens to do many things for them. Among those things is drive a Zamboni. I was there for it was 3-1. I was there for all the humiliating defeats. So if I'm wrong about this, you can throw it in my face and it won't even crack the Mount Rushmore. It won't even crack the top 10 of most embarrassing Leaf defeats I've had to discuss. But for some stupid reason, do you feel that? Do you smell that? Your 2022 Stanley Cup champions will be the Toronto Maple Leafs. You go ahead. You go ahead and clip it. You save it. I'm saving this. I know you are. You don't need my permission. You save it. You save it for Instagram. I see you all out there. You save it for Twitter. What are you going to do? A little TikTok on that as well? How about a YouTube short? You save it. That's fine. But for some reason, it's in my heart this year. I think they're going to do it. But what do you think? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. What are your picks for this year's 2022 Stanley Cup Playoffs? For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. I just got a feeling.